first off, I want to thank the grace of heaven and the virtues of the masters, the mercy of the grand predecessor and predecessors and transmitting masters and everyone here today to have this opportunity to talk about Tao in everyday life. So this topic is kind of related to the previous or last week's or kind of an extension, because last week I did mention that Tao is in it's a lot of things, including it's in everyday life. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, so here it is. Right, so Tao, we said previously that it's all pervading, it's everywhere, it's everything. Okay, it's also the force, right? This mysterious or mystical force that pervades everything, and it's the force behind the whole universe and everything within it, even all life. Okay, so the nature, it's also, you can say, equate it to nature, or nature is Tao. I mean, it's a manifestation of Tao, the life force. Okay, and then it's also the way to eternal life, the way to transcend this cycle of life and death, right? So that's very important. So that kind of talked in detail last week with the pastor's dream. Okay, so today we're gonna kind of look at this Tao in everyday life. All right, because okay. Right, so again, Tao Te Ching, right, it says the humans follow the earth, right, and the earth follows the heavens, heavens follow Tao. Tao follows the way of nature, or it is natural by itself. I mean, it just follows itself, really. So what this is saying is that there is a natural order to all existence, all phenomenal existence, right? Phenomenal means, they have form, or it could be the shapeless form, forms that we cannot see too. Those are also forms. But there is this certain order that happens. There's, whether you want to call it forces, forces of nature, laws of nature that kind of govern how all this phenomenal existence, how it kind of behaves. Okay, so there's this natural order, there's like this hierarchy from all the way from the Tao, from the very beginning to top, all the way down to, through the heavens and the earth, and then to humans. Humans, of course. Okay, so that, what that means is that it's not random. Okay, so there's things in this universe, excuse me, they don't happen randomly. Okay, I mean, there might be some random elements, but overall there is some guiding force or guiding laws. Okay, so because of this, the laws of nature, right, they determine how things are created, how they interact, and how they decay. So we study nature, right, using the scientific method. We can figure out how things should behave, although they may not be, we may not know actually the root cause. For example, the physicists, they've identified 4 fundamental forces of nature, but there are still things that can't really be explained, or not yet able to explain everything, the behavior of things. When they observe the stars, they observe the black holes, all these things, that they're things that are somewhat, there was this question about, is the universe is expanding, and it's, there's a question about the Planck's, there are several constants that science uses, like Planck's constant, there's the Hubble constant, and those things are in question now because observation doesn't seem to match the theory exactly. So, but anyway, so that's actually an issue with science. Okay, and then of course the big question, what caused the Big Bang, right? So assuming that there was a Big Bang in the beginning, what caused it? And they can't really explain that. Okay. Then there's also dark energy, dark matter, all these things. So these are all things, science seems to, with every answer that they get, it seems to generate more questions. That's the way of science. Okay, so, but, because science is very the tools of science are, you can say they're limited. I mean, our instruments are limited. They can't detect everything, and so there are certain things that just because it can't be detected doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, right? Just like, our spirit, the soul, this Buddha nature, this essence, maybe it can't be detected by the instruments, but it's still there, right? And that, so that's why they can't necessarily explain everything. Okay, so like this, okay, so, excuse me. Some water. Earthquakes, science is pretty good. It can kind of understand how things work pretty well. They can understand why earthquakes, or how it happens, how they happen, but they can't really predict, when it's going to happen. And then also, like currently, we have this novel coronavirus, right? It's the first time that humans have encountered this virus. It's related to other coronaviruses like SARS and even the flu, but it has different characteristics. So science can only tell us right now that it originated in bats, right, and jumped to another animal before jumping to humans. But there are other factors that are not studied by science because they're kind of beyond the realm of what science can tell us. Such as karma, and that's a topic that another topic that we can talk about in the future. So the Tao says, or the Tao Te Ching says that humans follow some kind of natural law, right? First off, you can say that the humans follow from the Earth. Meaning that humans are born, of course, we're born on this planet, right? Physically, we're born on this planet, and we depend on the planet for survival, to live. Okay, because we live here, we're governed by the gravity of the planet. The diurnal cycle, the day, 24-hour day, the geography, etc. So. All these things, we have to live with these within these. You can say they're like constraints. Now, because humans are, you can say humans are special more so than any other sentient being, in that we have ingenuity. Okay, we have intelligence, creativity. We can create things, and so by creating, we can overcome a lot of these constraints, like geography. The world is, it's pretty big. I mean, at least from our point of view, it's pretty big. And so, but we can build airplanes and we can travel pretty quickly, from one part of the world all the way to a very distant area. But at the same time, so we have these advances in tools, technology, but these are also, a double-edged sword, right? Because of this connectedness, is making it so easy to travel and to be connected. Basically, we also allow, for example, this virus to spread around the world so quickly, right? We become carriers, and then we bring it all over. We spread it around. So that's something. Obviously, science, technology, you can't necessarily. I mean, you can try to mitigate some of those problems, but ultimately, the root cause of the virus. We try to find out what the root cause is, and science right now they're trying to say, well, maybe people came in contact with the animal that had the virus and then they spread to them. Yeah, that's true, but why is there this virus to begin with? So that's kind of goes a little bit beyond what science can tell us. So this is kind of where it goes into the realm of what we study. You can say it's metaphysics, or this type of morality, right? So because when we talk about karma, then we can say, well, it's probably because of karma. Okay. All right. But anyways, what excuse me, what we're saying here, talking about here, is so that we are following these external constraints or these laws, and okay, that are, external, relating to our environment. But also we have internal natural laws that govern us and our behavior. Okay, so that is something that basically this next slide that Confucius talks about. So this is, again, I mentioned this already last week as well, in the Doctrine and the Mean. And as a bonus, I mean, if you know the answer of who wrote the Doctrine and the Mean, you can type it in the chat. Staff members are not allowed. But okay, so what it said, right? Heaven has conferred upon us, it's called the true nature, or the, our Buddha nature. To be in accordance with the nature is the Tao. So that is the part that we're kind of talking about here. That we, because we have this nature, this essence, it's something that really is giving us this life, and it is something that we should try to follow. I mean, we think we're doing what we're naturally supposed to do, but yet, that might actually be due to external influences, through our habits, for example, our preferences, biases, right? These are things that we picked up, we've learned from externally, but when we do that, then maybe we've forgotten about, or we're no longer following our true nature. Okay. Right, so in the Doctrine and Mean, right, so then it says, humans have an innate nature, which means that we have our own set of natural laws. Okay, so I also want to distinguish, between like humans and other animals or other life. So just kind of a little digression here, but in terms of the biological life, right? The very simplest life forms are like single-celled. Actually, they're not single. Okay, they're the single-celled, like bacteria, okay, that we're all familiar with, and they just know to survive. Okay, they just do very simple things to survive. They have no consciousness, right? There's no intention in what they're doing. They just do what they're essentially designed to do, okay, or what they evolved to do, right? Now, viruses, though, I want to mention, there's maybe some misconception. They think they're similar to bacteria, but they're not. They're less. They're lower than bacteria. Actually, they're not even a complete cell. Okay, so they call them virus particles. Okay, so they're not even alive, right? So you say, wow, that's weird. These viruses, they're not alive, and yet they're spreading and they're killing people. But they basically, due to, you can say this is all related to, I mean, they are organic molecules, or made up of organic molecules, but basically, because of, I don't know, I can only use the word that, they're designed this way, that they have certain receptors, on their surface that match the receptors on the cell surfaces, okay, on the surface of a cell, a living cell. And if they happen to match, so obviously, we're made up of a lot of proteins. And if they match, the interesting thing is, if they match, then what happens is it's kind of like a key opening up a lock, and it basically lets them get into the cell. And so they invade the cell and turn the cell into a factory that produces more virus. Okay, so that's very interesting for something that's not even a living thing. Okay, so it's very insidious, actually. It sounds like kind of a weapon, But anyways, so that's just what they're designed to do. And then plants, okay, further up on the evolution, on the life scale, if you will. Plants, again, they are also subject to conditions and environment, and cannot alter things to make things suitable for their own survival, right? So basically, plants, they can't choose, they can't decide, I'm in a shady place, but I want to be out in the sun, and I move out in the sun. They can't do that, okay? So Plants do have a whole life cycle. Okay, starting from a seed to the plant to the fruit, and then back to the seed again. Okay, but again, so they have what we call this growth nature, this this essence. Well, this force, okay, life force that just allows them to grow, okay, within this cycle. But they are not sentient, okay. So again, that word sentient means feeling, having sensation. Although plants react, just like the sunflower, it will react and follow the sun, okay, but it is not sentient, okay, so it doesn't really feel, it doesn't know, oh, that's the sun, I need to follow it. No, it is just a very natural process, okay. All right, and so basically to be sentient, right, to have sensation, feeling, and emotion, requires that there be a central nervous system. So this we only find basically in animals, okay, animals and humans, right? So animals are sentient. Their behavior is not completely governed by what we might consider to be a survival instinct. Okay, so normally, well, basically all life, wants to survive. The question is, in the very basic level, the survival is, this what we call this basic instinct, and they'll do anything to survive. Okay, so, but animals, although they generally are like that, they can go beyond that too. In other words, they can also know to sacrifice their life to help others. So we hear stories of that, where a pet, dog or even cats or whatever animal, they save the members of the household, members of the household from a burning house, things like that, or they sacrifice, pretty much sacrifice their life to save another animal or other person. So they can do that. That's kind of going beyond their natural instinct. Okay, so that makes them, there is something there. There's more than just this instinctive behavior. So they do have. That's why we consider, or Buddha says, all sentient beings, they have this Buddha nature. They have the true essence. Okay, so and that's why we should definitely respect all life, all sentient life. Right. Okay, now, so humans are at the top of the biological evolutionary ladder, right? Although our body functions are basically the same as animals, we are designed to have greater dexterity and intelligence, right? To be able not just to survive, but to create things and to alter our environment to suit our own needs, right? To suit our, so we have this consciousness or spiritual nature, okay? This turns out to be a double-edged sword too, okay? So why? Because with our intelligence, with our reasoning, I mean, we can follow our true nature, but at the same time we can ignore it and we can go against it. That happens to be, so that's the nature of it. That's what the Buddha nature has given us, this ability to be what we want to be, do what we want to do. And the question is, well, should we do it? What should we do? Okay, what should we be? And so that is the question that needs to be answered. And unfortunately, science does not answer that. And that's why there is, we talk about there's philosophy, there's religion, these, morality, the ethics, kind of deal with these types of issues. Okay, so yeah, if we want to, evolve, right? So some people saying, oh, they want to colonize Mars, right? Yeah, that's fine. I mean, if you're able to do that, of course, that requires a lot of technology, and you can't really necessarily control the environment as much as you like. But even if you can do it, you're just basically, unless you address this issue, the internal issue, of our conduct, our behavior, our way of thinking, then we're just going to export the same problems we have on Earth onto Mars. Okay, so that's the fundamental issue at hand here, and that's what Confucius really tried to address. All right, so it's internal. What we're trying to address is internal. Okay, so again, okay, so I guess no one had the answer for who wrote the Doctrine of the Mean. It was Zisi, who is the grandson of Confucius. All right. Anyways, so the way of humanity, right? Basically, the Tao of humanity. This is again a term that we'll use because this is, although we talk about heavenly Tao, right? The Tao of heaven. This in general when we just say the Tao, that usually refers to this. We say the Tao of heaven, okay, or the way of heaven. But again, it's all pervading. So in humans, then we're talking about the way of humanity, okay, the Tao of humanity, right? So Confucius talks about these 5 constants, and you can say they arise from our conscience. The conscience, again, is a manifestation of this essence, this true nature within us, all right? So we have these 5 that, again, I mentioned, I think, last week. So we have, usually the way it's stated or listed is, you say, benevolence, righteousness, propriety, wisdom, and faith, sincerity. Okay, faith, sincerity, and faith. Okay, I put those together. All right, so from these, we can talk about each of these. Benevolence, it's basically, so these are what Confucius is saying is that these are natural qualities that we all have as human beings. We can express these things, or we can, we manifest it, or we have these, right? And so benevolence, what does that mean? Benevolence is basically, you can express it as compassion, sympathy, empathy, kindness, mercy, brotherly love, humaneness, etc. Okay, so many things. Okay, and then righteousness is basically can be expressed as, you can say it's like morality. Okay, so knowing right and wrong, what sense of justice. You can say it's having integrity, upholding our duties. Doing we need to do what we need to do what's right. Okay. Wisdom, propriety, is expressed as upholding the laws and rules, right? And also the order of natural order, or whether it's natural or it's, defined by laws, certain orders that we follow, the etiquette, okay? Protocol, right? We follow certain protocols, proprieties, or the rules, and obedience, and basically harmony, okay, among people within a society. And then wisdom is expressed as, you can say, it's our awareness, our mindfulness, introspection, self-reflection, having good judgment, common sense, that kind of stuff. But it goes beyond that, of course. Basically, sometimes we talk about common sense wisdom, but actually, this wisdom is more. It's that innate divine. I guess you could say divine wisdom. Okay, it goes beyond just what's common sense, and because it can deal with things that we've never experienced before. Okay, that situations that we never encountered. We can still use this wisdom can guide us in dealing with those. All right, and then finally, in the center, we have sincerity, faith. All right, that represents our true self, our true being, and is expressed as the genuineness, the self-confidence, you could say, honesty, trustworthiness, loyalty, etc. Okay, so those are kind of like the characteristics or qualities of these various constants. It's important, Now, it's important to realize that we have to, these are, so they express, through these 5 constants, we express certain virtues, okay, which we'll talk about next. And then but they have to be done in harmony and balance. In other words, we can't just say focus. Oh, I'm very benevolent. I'm merciful. I'm very kind to people, etc. But without, if we just say, okay, I just do this, but I ignore righteousness, or I ignore propriety, or ignore wisdom, or ignore the other ones, then that's not good. For example, I can be so nice to let's say parents, being so loving and caring of their child, but if they just do that, they can spoil the child easily. Okay. And so the righteousness aspect would be sometimes the child has to be disciplined if they do something wrong. Okay, so therefore you can't just do one without the other. All right. So that's part of the reason, I guess, why, for example, benevolence and righteousness are on opposite sides here. They have to balance each other. Okay, you cannot just do one, and then or on the other end of the spectrum, being righteous, being very strict. If you just do that without showing any love, care, kindness, or mercy, then that's not right either. So it's basically, we have to be balanced. It has to be in harmony. So that's kind of like the center, being centered. Okay, staying in the center. Okay, so. Yeah, okay, so now from here, these things, now why is that sincerity and faith is in the center? It's basically faith, the Chinese word xing, it could mean faith, it could also really mean sincerity. I mean, faith, the question is, what are we talking about when we're saying faith? It's not faith in something like in religions, they have faith, right? They say, oh, I have faith in God. I have faith in, Jesus. I have faith in whoever. This is not talking about that external faith. It's faith internal. It's the internal faith. Because that Buddha nature, that essence that we have is complete. There's no need to rely on anything else. So we have to have that complete faith in our own Buddha nature, in our own essence, in our own true self. Okay, so that faith is not really externally placed; it's internal, and so that's why it's also, we can't really talk about faith without sincerity. Okay, faith depends on sincerity. If we're insincere, then you can say we cannot have faith. Okay, so those go together. That's why I always use those together, or sometimes I'll just say sincerity, because it's really a showing our true self, our genuine true self. Okay, that's who we really are. Okay, and that's just, we're showing that, expressing that. And so we use these words, sincerity, faith. Confucius talks about using the Chinese word "诚恳," right? So that is really what he's talking about. This just being true to our true nature, being true to yourself, being true to the true nature. Okay. Okay, so this, let's see. Okay, so here's a question. How is this related to what was in the Tao Te Ching, where it says, humans follow the earth, earth follows heaven, etc. But mainly that first line, humans follow the earth. How is this related to that? Well, you guys probably don't know, but anyways, so basically these 5 constants are related to, there's this theory of the 5 elements, right? So benevolence is wood, righteousness is metal, associated with metal, propriety is associated with fire, wisdom is associated with water, and faith or sincerity is associated with the earth. Okay, so that's our connection to that, in the Tao Te Ching. All right, so basically, humans follow the earth. Okay, so what I was talking about earlier was external stuff, right? Following the external environment, all that, the natural laws externally. But this is following the internal earth, okay? Which is this true nature, this Buddha nature, our essence. So that faith and that sincerity. So that's the key there. That's the connection there. All right. Okay. All right. So from those five, we get to the what's called the eight cardinal virtues. Okay. So these are kind of like basic virtues that we all. Okay. That we all are able to express, right? And so it starts with filial piety. In the Bible, one of the Ten Commandments says to honor thy parents. That's kind of a very simple way to put it. Filial piety is more than that, but and there's a whole Dharma class topic that talks just about filial piety. And the Buddhists or even the Buddha, right? He had a sutra on talked about filial piety. Basically, or Confucius also talks about filial piety. Basically, it is one of the most important virtues that we can manifest, right? And if you think about it, we came from our parents. I mean, we were born of our parents, and so, they gave us this this life. Although, of course, our Buddha nature, our soul, came from somewhere else, but still, without this body, we wouldn't be here. And so there's something that this is actually, we have to show gratitude, appreciation, respect, all these things, to kind of pay back, if you will, the grace that we have gotten from our parents. Okay, so that's what filial piety is about. So that's why it's the first virtue. Okay, and they say that, well, to be a proper human being, we need to know filial piety or be able to practice filial piety. Brotherhood is love for everyone equally. Basically treat everyone as brothers and sisters. So in the Tao, in the temple, we call everyone, as either brother or sister, because essentially that's what we are, even though we come from different families. But at the higher level, we're all children. You can say children of God, children of God, of Lao-Mu. So we all come from that same spiritual family, and so we are. But not only that, animals also. I think it was in the Bible, the book Paul. I forgot which book, but one that Paul wrote. He came later. He was, but I think he wrote this letter to the Romans. I forgot what the book, the gospel name is, but he did say something about that he considers all animals as his brothers as well. Okay, so this brotherhood extends really beyond just humans. Although in Confucius, when Confucius is talking about this, I don't know, he may not have specified that, but if you want to take this as a principle, a general principle, yes, we should love all sentient beings, treat them all with respect and equally. Okay, loyalty, of course, is fidelity is another way to say it. Being loyal to someone. So, if although it's I mean, basically, how that's related to kind of trust, actually. Basically, if we are loyal to someone, we can say that, you can say that we follow we do as we say. Okay, so we are sincere about when we say something that we're going to do it, etc. Okay, so, and then loyalty also, it's, if we're treated well, then we should not, then turn around and basically bite the hand that feeds us, that kind of thing. That's not showing loyalty. But on the other hand, again, so today, right, our president, right, seeks loyalty from those who work for him, right? But loyalty, again, these things you have to there's a balance again, right? So you can't just say, oh, I'm just loyal, and I ignore everything else. So you can be loyal to someone and you'll do whatever they say, but if what they say is to do something, commit a crime, do something bad, are you going to do it? I mean, so there's a limit to this loyalty, right? So you have to have righteousness, you have the propriety, these things that will kind of balance it. So we can't just be strictly, say, oh, I'm loyal to the end. Okay, so that's not good, right? Trust, again, trustworthiness. Okay, so we have to trust others, and others can trust us. This is generally applied in when we say talking about friendships. Okay, it's based on trust, or not just friendships, but even any kind of dealings with other people. Whether it might be business transactions, things like that, anything. There's a certain amount of trust. If there's no trust, then today there are all these scams, things like that. So you can't trust everything. Okay, so again, this is we have to use our wisdom too, and understand it's like, oh no, don't fall for these these scams, because unfortunately there are people who will take advantage. And so, okay, so propriety is, being proper and appropriate. Again, this is, for the in the given situation, what is the proper thing? What is appropriate? So no matter where we are, there are laws, there are rules, okay, that we have to follow. And so we should follow it. So right now we're under, stay-at-home orders. We're under the, social distancing. We have to wear the face covering. Okay, so these things, these are basically, kind of like the law right now, the rules that we need to follow. Okay, we shouldn't just say, oh, I know better. I can stay safe without following these rules. But that's kind of being selfish. Okay, that's being selfish because we don't know everything, and so. We should definitely follow the rules. Some of the rules, but a lot of these rules, of course, these are humans, what humans have set. Society, government has set these laws and rules, put them in place. But of course, internally, if we follow our conscience, if we follow our virtues, basically, if we're following our Buddha nature, we would naturally. We would have no problems following these rules, or that we would actually naturally, do these things anyways. Okay. But I know that certain laws people tend to ignore. Well, they don't say ignore entirely, but for example, speeding. Okay, so this is one thing that a lot of people do, and they just think that, well, why is the speed limit so low? But they do it for a reason, of course. But we think, oh, we can handle the car. I can drive safely at a higher speed, and so I'll just do it. And think, if I can get away with it, that is. Unfortunately, humans. This is the human nature. Okay, human nature is subject to basically. We've gotten to the point where it's we react to the carrot and the stick. Okay, so basically, if we don't want to get caught. Of course, we don't want punishment, and so we'll try to avoid punishment. And that's the laws are intended to try to basically threaten us with punishment. If we do these things, break the laws. But sometimes it doesn't deter people. It's kind of meant as a deterrent, but it doesn't really deter people all the time, or not all people, and so it doesn't always work. So just you look at speeding, that everyone does that, even though they may be a good person, in other ways, but they still might, drive faster than the speed limit. Okay, so. But that again, that is being selfish, right? So maybe we think we can drive safely, but it might affect other drivers, right? How do they react? Okay, so it's always better to just follow the rules. righteousness, a sense of justice. So when we see something that is, let's say, a crime being committed or some injustice being done, I think our conscience will let us know that, hey, this isn't right. That maybe I should do something. I should call 911. I should whatever, or try to go help. And that is something that's innate. I mean, I think everyone has that sense. So this is something that we already have, that we need to kind of manifest some more. Integrity, honesty, being honest and incorruptible. Unfortunately, in today's society, there are too many temptations, and I guess the biggest temptation today is, or maybe it has always been throughout history, is money, right, or wealth, and so people will do lots of things, illegally, unlawfully, to gain that wealth, and so whether, or like they might accept bribes, right? So this is this integrity is kind of dealing with that. Sense of shame, basically having remorse and guilt, sense of guilt when we did something wrong. Okay, this is again, coming from, these are, you could say it's coming from our conscience, and saying that, well, I realize I did something wrong, and I feel bad about it. I feel remorseful. I feel guilty. I feel shameful. If you look at, these criminals who are caught, right? They don't want to show their face on camera, right? They don't want it. They hide their face. It's like, I don't know. That might be, an indication of some kind of sense of shame, a little bit maybe, but. So I mean, they're very rare that you have people who've committed a wrong and they're caught and they're smiling to the camera and they're doing that. So at least I think most people, they still have a little bit of a sense of shame, right? So these are very important to our conduct in society, all right? And this is kind of these are all the internal stuff. Okay, so if humans, if we all followed these virtues, okay, these are virtues. There are other virtues you can say, like patience. Sometimes you say patience is a virtue, right? So other things, tolerance, right? Magnanimity, all these things. But if we can follow these virtues, then really there would probably be no need for human laws, right? Because we would all do the right thing. We would all be courteous. We would all be nice to each other. And we would all be considerate of others. So this is really what Confucius envisioned, that if people, rather than depend on laws to kind of keep people in control, under check, right? To prevent people from doing what they should not do, it should be internal, because once it's internal, then we realize then we control ourselves. Okay, so that we are not dependent on these laws. So because every time, why are there so many laws on the books? I mean, it's because they all cover these special cases, all these individual cases. There's so many different situations, and every time something new comes in, then you have to come up with a new law to deal with it. Okay, so, but this is more fundamental, right? It's like the basic principles, and if we can follow these, they can be applied to any situation. So that's why it's more important, and that's what Confucius, he realized that, well, you have to start from the core. This is at the core, the root. This is really addressing the root of the problem, okay? So rather than a Band-Aid solution, which is addressing the symptoms by, well, they did this and we didn't have a law for this, so now we're going to have to, create a new law to deal with this so people don't do this again, right? So that's not addressing the root of the problem, okay? So the root of the problem is human behavior, and unfortunately government doesn't really deal with that, okay? All right, so if if people can do this, then yeah, we wouldn't need laws, and basically we would have, excuse me, we would have basically Confucius's ideal for world unity and harmony. Okay, that would be achieved, and that is really the goal of the Tao too, the spreading of the Tao. So to teach people to understand this is who they really are. Their listen to their conscience, that they have this conscience, and these are its characteristics, that we need to follow that, and that to be a proper, an upright human being. Okay, it's, Confucius says, most people. There's a very little difference between humans and animals, and most people throw that away. They ignore that difference. Basically, they become like animals. They behave, just wantonly just like animals. So this is, and that's very unfortunate. That this human life is very precious. It's hard to have this human life. We don't realize that because we don't see our past lives. But how many lifetimes have we been as animals before? We don't know. And although people say, well, look at human population, there's more and more people. And so, life is kind of like a dime, human life is like a dime a dozen, right? But actually, now it's during this time, of course, a lot of, spirits, a lot of animals, that they're reincarnating as humans now. They're having given this chance. Okay. But anyways, that's beyond, what most people can see. So, but anyways, so this is something that's precious. This is something that only humans can express these 8 virtues. Animals can do maybe 1 or 2, like loyalty. We know dogs or certain animals can be very loyal to their owner, right? Their master. And so, so they have some of it, but it's not complete. Humans can, express all of these, and that's what makes us special. And that's why we are kind of the link between heaven and earth. We and animals, and so humans can receive this Tao and can gain that eternal life. Okay, but animals cannot. They have to, become human again before they can achieve that. All right. Okay. Okay, so another, also from Confucius, his teachings, right? So Zhigong asks, is there one word which may serve as a rule of practice for all one's life? The master, or Confucius, says, is not reciprocity such a word? What you do not want done to yourself, do not do to others. Okay, so this is basically the golden rule, right? In Christianity, Jesus says, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Okay, so basically, this is having consideration for others, right? When we talk about humanity, right? The definition for humanity, or one definition for humanity, is being humane. It's how we treat others, how we have consideration for other people. Okay, so not just other people, but others, and so this is directly addressing that. And so we have to always, let's say, we can put ourselves in the other person's shoes. Okay, so we can see by doing this, we are saying basically we are removing that distinction between you and me. Okay, so we are one. I am you, you are me. And so, if I feel, I wouldn't treat myself badly, so then I shouldn't treat you badly either, right? Because we are one anyways. It's like if I treat you badly, that's the same as treating myself badly. So that's really the concept, the principle here. And it's a very basic principle, and unfortunately people seem to forget it, and so they become, when they become selfish, right? So okay, and then Another thing that Confucius talks about says, if I am with two other men, they will be my teachers. I will pick the good points of one and imitate them, and the bad points of the other and correct them in myself. So humans tend to be they fall into this duality thing, this you and me separation again. It's like, oh, you did something wrong, and we start pointing externally. We start blaming and complaining about others. Okay, but what Confucius is saying, hey, we have to look within ourselves. So this introspection. Okay, so hey, when I'm with other people, hey, I can always learn from them, whether if they're good doing something that is better than what I'm doing, or they're doing something good that I'm not doing, then I can learn to do those things. And if someone we notice that someone is doing something that they shouldn't, we know that, we recognize that in ourselves, ask ourselves, do we do that? And to remind ourselves not to do those things. Okay, so it's all internal, reflect back on ourselves, not towards others. Okay, so that's really the key here. So that's why that golden rule is stated the way it is, right? It says what you do not want done to yourself. So it's pointing to yourself first, looking at yourself internally rather than external. Okay, so this is all what Confucius's teachings is. He's pointing that out. Okay. Okay. The other thing that Confucius talks about are these 5 relationships, that cardinal relationships. No matter where you are, what culture, tradition, anything, there are always these 5 relationships. Okay, so between parents and children, the parents should treat the children kindly with benevolence, and the children should be filial towards the parents. Now, again, this does not mean that the parents are only benevolent to the child. Again, remember I said there's a balance, but this is generally the how we would treat the children. But of course, we have to be righteous too. We have to make sure that they follow the rules. They have to be disciplined sometimes, things like that. Okay, so and then between husband and wife, again today, because back then and today's society, things are a little bit different than what's normal. Okay, today, maybe they both work, or the roles might be reversed. Okay, and then you also have the rule between the ruler and the subject. So the ruler rules humanely, okay, not like, so you have some, maybe it's possible to have a benevolent dictator, but usually dictators, they're kind of selfish, and they want to do certain things their way. It's their way or no way, okay, so, but, should be humane, and then the subjects will naturally be loyal, okay, so this is a natural consequence of that. The older and younger family members, okay, so this could apply to more generally just to between older and younger. So this natural order, right? And that the older should kind of love the younger. We generally, when we talk about siblings, we say that, and then the younger will respect the older. But this can apply to any situation, So usually the young generation should show more respect to the elder generation, right? So again, this is all part of, you can say, propriety. And then friends, of course, there's the trust among, is kind of what binds the friendship. Okay, so these 5 relationships. Now, if you look at, there are 3, the parents and children, husband and wife, and the older and younger, they can apply within the family. So 3 out of the 5 are in the family. So that's why it's very important. This Confucius, realized that, the family is so important. So that's why he also said that, to govern the state, if you can govern the family well, then you can govern, society and the state well. Basically, the society is made up of a collection of families. So if all the families are, in harmony, peaceful, and they're loving and caring, then of course society will be the same. Okay, all right. Let's see. Okay. Okay. So the other thing there are these three. Three introspections, right? This is these three, and this was said by Zhenzi, right? So again, one of Confucius' disciples. Have I been loyal and sincere in my dealings with others? Again, see, when we, no matter what kind of transaction, what kind of dealings we have with other people, we have to be sincere. Okay, we don't just say, oh, on the surface, just by from my mouth, I say certain words, but I don't really mean it. Okay, so that's not sincere. Loyal also is basically similar to being trustworthy or trust. That you would then follow through with whatever maybe the other person gave us a request, and we would follow through and complete it. We wouldn't turn our back on them. Have I been trustworthy in my interactions with friends? Okay, have I practiced what I've been taught? Now, this is also an important thing that we learn in our lives. We learn a lot, right? We go through. Whether it's through school and then outside of school, we learn, at work or just in our everyday life, we learn a lot of things. But I hope that the hope is that we learn from those things. I mean, we say we learn it. I mean, it's knowledge, but have we really put it into practice, made use of it? Okay, so all the things that we teach in temple is, there's a lot of stuff, but do we actually put it into practice? I mean, all this, you can say it's all very practical stuff. I mean, that we need to apply it in our lives, okay, to be meaningful. Otherwise, we just it's not good to just gain knowledge for the sake of knowledge, okay. Then we're just filling our brains with all this stuff that's useless, okay. So this is very important that we have to practice. In the Tao, of course, the practice is very important. Okay, we have to do the practice. Otherwise, again, it's we're not going to achieve the goal, right? All right. Okay. So, what do these guys, these four monkeys, represent? Last week we mentioned that, right? The four not to dos, right? Do not look at what is improper. Do not listen to what is improper. Do not say what is improper. Do not do what is improper. Okay, so again, this is from Confucius' teachings. Remember that Chinese character for zui, which is sin, is composed of two parts. The top part is character for number 4. The bottom part is the character for not, basically don't, not, or yeah. And so it says the 4 things that we do not. And so these are the 4, basically, things that we should not look at, we should not see, we shouldn't look at them. There are a lot of things. Pornography is one thing, even the Buddha's mentioned that in Dharma class, but a lot of things that we should not see. And, even reading, I think Buddha's also mentioned, Holy Teacher also mentioned, don't read those romance novels, those steamy novels, whatever. I mean, those things are all, those are not very useful. Okay, so do not listen to what is improper. Again, things that, we hear these conspiracy theories, these rumors, right? And then this gossip, and we listen to those. Oh yeah, I have very much interest in those things. No, so we should just not listen to those if we can, avoid those. And then it's worse than to listen to those things and then spread it, say it. So that's saying what's improper. Also, of course, saying what's improper also includes other things. I mean, there's, we're not talking about this topic here, but there's the 4 things that come from the mouth. Well, I used to say 4 vices of the mouth, I guess. I mean, that, we lie, or we say, have this, say gossip, I guess, if you will, or say have a divisive tongue, or we, like to curse people, things like that. So those are abusive language, right? So those things that, or flattery, okay? So those are the types of things that, we should not say. And then, so basically, the rule is, the general rule should be, if there's nothing good to say, don't say it, right? And then finally, don't do what's not, what's improper, okay? So again, so knowing what's proper and improper is very important. Sometimes we have to learn those things in terms of what's defined by the law. But others are kind of more where it's not covered by the law. Then those are kind of things that come from our conscience, that guide us, and our wisdom to guide us as to what's proper and improper. Okay, so we have to be more in touch with ourselves. So the more we, if we spend a lot of time on all these other things that are improper, then of course it becomes natural for us, and we say, "Oh, this is not improper." I do it all the time. But so that's why in the monastic order, if you become a monk, then there are all these precepts that we have to follow. These rules that we and in the temple we have some of those, but the monks, back then they have to follow a lot of rules, hundreds. Okay, so and about things that they should not do, and so the idea is to cut us off from that so that it doesn't become a habit. And if it doesn't become a habit, then then we realize right away that that's improper. Okay. So that's it. So this is kind of I think in the West, you say what, see no evil, hear no evil, say no evil, and do no evil, right? So it's a similar thing. Okay. All right. So now in Buddhism, right? So in the Diamond Sutra, chapter 1, this is what it says. Thus have I heard, right? Once Buddha traveled in the kingdom of Shravasti and stayed in Jeta Grove, where 1,250 great monks had assembled. When the time came for the world-honored one to have his meal, he put on his robe, right, took up his bowl, and entered the great city of Shravasti to beg for food. After begging for food from door to door, he returned, ate the food, put away his robe and bowl, washed his feet, arranged his seat, and sat down. Okay, so it's very interesting. This is not, Buddha didn't say anything here, so this isn't really, but it's actually Buddha was demonstrating something. So without using words, Buddha is trying to teach something here. And I mentioned this last week. I didn't mention the Diamond Sutra. I didn't mention this chapter, but I already talked about it last week. I don't know if you remember. It's the Four Normals. Okay, so basically what Buddha was demonstrating is that we have a regular routine, daily routine that we go through. We get our food, we eat, whether we work, whatever, rest, and then we rest. Okay, so that's kind of this routine thing that we do. The second thing is what's common or ordinary. So Buddha begged for food like any other monk. So he was not being special. He didn't even though he was the Buddha, okay, that he didn't say, he asked one of his disciples to go get food for him. He didn't do that. He went out with them just the same as they did, and to beg for food also for himself. So that is something that we shouldn't consider ourselves to be above others, that others need to serve us. Okay, but common and ordinary can mean the things that are very commonplace. Okay, then the plain and simple. Okay, so Buddha wore and ate the same as the other monks as well. Okay, so and the food they ate, of course, was just very normal stuff. It wasn't like, they didn't go to the rich person's house to beg for food, because they know they can get very good food from the wealthy person. No, they didn't do that. They just went to whoever gave them the food, okay, and they ate it. And so that's the plain and simple. They weren't looking for anything special as well in terms of, right? And then the genuine, very natural. So Buddha, when he sat, he rested in a natural composure. So that is his natural state. That is our true state, is like that. Okay, so obviously, but this also applies to the whole thing, to everything, that we should be in that natural state, in that composed state, all the time. So being genuine, again, that's like expressing our sincerities, expressing our true self, our true nature, all the time. Okay, so so this is very interesting. It's a wordless teaching from the Buddha, right? And also, this is saying again that there is the practice of the Tao is not something special like qigong or meditation, that type of thing. Although they did do meditation, of course, they're conditioning their mind. But today we don't have, because they spent a lot of time in meditation back then. That was the practice back then. Okay, the practices can change over time, and so in today's society, we don't have that much time to sit and meditate all day. Okay, so that is no longer a focus. The focus is on the Tao of humanity that we were talking about earlier, that Confucius talks about. So that's why today we say that the Tao is basically you can say the practice of the Tao is through the Tao of humanity, the way that Confucius through his teachings. Okay, okay, and also Buddha, he also discouraged, even though his disciple, of course, the Buddha himself has transcendental powers already, because once he attained become a Buddha, he has these powers. A lot of his disciples also had several of these transcendental powers, being telepathic, being, and all these things. Okay, so, but he discouraged them from using these powers to do things. Okay, so again, because it's not natural, it's not the natural way of things. Okay, all right. Now, we also can see Tao in nature, right? We should learn from nature, not just say, "Oh, wow, this is great! Wow, it feels great to be out in the middle of in the wilderness. To see the mountains. It's beautiful." But we should also learn. We can apply, say, "Oh, wow, the heavens is so vast. The universe is so vast. I mean, we are just a tiny speck in this whole universe." And so it kind of puts things in perspective, right? There's that, I didn't put the picture in here, but there was a picture taken by NASA of, called the pale blue dot, all right? It was taken by, I think, I forget which spacecraft, it might have been Voyager, when it was like passing, like, I don't know, Jupiter or Saturn, and it turned around and took a picture of the Earth. It was just a tiny dot in the picture, a blue dot, because they're so far away. And so that kind of puts things in perspective of where we are, in this whole universe. Although, so that's kind of, we have to be humble. Although we are great, yes, human beings are great, and we can become Buddhas. That's what makes us great. But we still have to be humble, okay? We have to learn from the earth. The earth gives us everything, for us to live here, okay, to survive. It gives us sustenance. It nurtures us, and it also tolerates everything. So all the stuff that we're taking from the earth, right, and what we're doing to the earth, we're polluting the air, we're throwing our garbage into the oceans, all these things, the earth is tolerating that, and so we should tolerate it too. I mean, if the earth had an ego, I don't think it would tolerate it. It would get very angry, and it would probably destroy humanity. Okay, but we have to learn to be tolerant like the earth. Okay, so be able to accept all these things. The natural beauty of mountains, forests, lakes, rivers. Okay, all these things. There's natural beauty. There is beauty in everything, and it just is. It just is, and we have to accept that as it is, and because it is what it is, it is naturally, it's just showing its own beauty in its own way. Okay, so that's why we should accept that. And the holy teacher told us that we should try to get close to nature. I mean, we, unfortunately, for most of us, we're living in the cities or whatever, and we're living in a concrete jungle. There's like pretty much no nature around here. I mean, we see some trees. That's about it. And it's so sometimes we have to reconnect ourselves to nature. Okay, the external nature. Of course, we should always be connected to our internal nature, but the external nature can help us to reconnect to the internal nature too. So we should also try to connect to the external nature. And definitely, we have to learn from nature. Now, this is the fun thing. We're running out of time, but okay, so I'll quickly, again, to see Tao in the movies. Hey, what better reason to see a movie than to say, hey, I'm doing research on the Tao, right? So, I've mentioned, Star Wars, of course, The Force. Okay, these are not movies about the Tao, but they have concepts. They use the concepts that are similar, that are found in the Tao, in the principles in these movies. Okay, so of course I already talked about The Force. Okay, The Matrix is another movie that I like to talk about because basically it's talking about the world as being an illusion. So basically this is the Buddhist view of the world, that it's samsara, it's not real, and that we need to wake up to the truth of what the true reality is. Okay, there are a lot of, actually, if you haven't seen the movie, you should see it, because I recommend it, because there's so many religious references in here, from Buddhism and Christianity. Okay, so but it's very good. And besides being a pretty cool science fiction movie and cool effects, the way I view movies is, you treat it as an entertainment, but in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking about the Tao, or picking up the points in there that relate to the Tao. Okay, so that makes it even more meaningful. All right, then the Iron Giant, this animated movie, which I thought was very good. Also, it's basically about this benevolent superior being, if you will, or in this case, it's a robot from outer space. But there are many movies, that talk about, that have this theme. Okay, so like E.T., right? Everyone knows. K-Pax, you've probably not seen, but that's a very interesting one. Starman, CJ7, that's a Stephen Chow movie, which is. But anyways, how you notice how we always, or these filmmakers, they depict these superior beings as being benevolent, as so in many cases they are vegetarian, because they're benevolent. They treat life with respect, all life with respect. So we should learn from that too. We can learn from these things too. Okay. And also, whether they're self-sacrificing, all that. They have all these qualities that we know, just like from Buddhas and saints, their teachings. They basically are models of those principles. Okay, so those are some things that we can learn from, right? So it's not just you see a movie as entertainment. We can learn something good from them. All right. Okay. So, conclusion. All right. So, Tao is manifested in everyday life. It's, there are two aspects: the external and the internal. A lot of things, the principles, the laws of nature are external, but then we have the internal laws of nature, which is manifested from our conscience and the five constants and the eight virtues, all that. Okay. That Confucius talks about. And also what Buddha demonstrated, that is very normal, plain in everyday life. Okay, so the practice of the Tao of humanity, right, to achieve the Tao of heaven. So the Tao of heaven, to achieve the Tao of heaven, is basically for us to return back home, to transcend this cycle of life and death, to return back to our origin, where we come from. Okay, our spiritual home, and to no longer have to suffer in this constant cycle, all right? To correct our bad habits and faults and get rid of our bad temper. Okay, so this is a common theme that we always talk about in the temple. That and the Buddhists mention that what is cultivation? At the basic level, it's just doing this. Okay, getting rid of our bad habits and faults, and getting rid of our bad temperament as well. Okay. Harmonize with and learn from nature and each other. Okay, so again, we don't live alone, secluded from everyone else. We interact with other people in society and also with nature. So we have to be in harmony and with nature and with other people, and also to learn from them. Okay, so that is, one of the basic principles as well. And we should also cherish our time in life. Basically, our life, every life is precious, no matter how long or short it is. Okay, and that's why the time is very important. We don't know how long our life is. We should cherish every moment of it. So don't waste our time on useless things, frivolous things. We should try to learn more, practice more, and really apply ourselves, and get to understand, to know our Buddha nature. Ultimately, we want to become one with our Buddha nature, right? In the class on Sunday, right? Somebody asked about how we make mistakes in our decisions. I mean, so we have to connect with that wisdom of our Buddha nature, our conscience, and then we will seemingly do the right thing all the time. Okay, or there is no one right or one wrong answer. Okay, it's just it's whatever is appropriate is the right thing in that situation. Okay, so in that sense, it's not absolute, but the principles could be absolute. It's just that the application could be relative. All right. Okay, and finally here, so this is a song. It's actually an English song by our holy teacher, the True Heart. Right. It says, the life goes by from year to year. Nobody can make the day longer. Cherish the time. Do our best. Make it better. Right? Seek the great truth from Tao Center. From now on, realize the true heart, my dear. Open the gate. Go on the way together. We have found the right place that gives safe shelter from suffering and danger. Remember that I am the one, always gives you mighty power. Be your supporter. There is no time for you to linger. Perfect your character. Kindly enlighten others. Teacher is your big shoulder. Companies with you forever. Right? So again, Holy Teacher is reminding us that, hey, we need to make the best use of our time, perfect our character, become a better person, and to help others, to guide others towards this enlightenment as well. Okay, so finally, again, I'll use this slide again. May the Tao be with you. Okay, so, everyone be safe, be healthy, follow the rules that we have in place, the social distancing, wear a face covering when you go out, and also, always wash your hands, because, we have to be healthy in order to practice, okay, to cultivate. If we're sick, and possibly we could die, but if we're ill, then it's hard to do things. So again, stay safe, and I wish everyone the best. So if I had said anything wrong, I ask the Buddhas and saints for forgiveness, and also if I had said anything that's not satisfactory, and also ask the transmitters and lecturers to correct me. All right, thank you.